So today we'll talk about Azure Traffic Manager. What is meant by Traffic Manager, why we need to use, and when we need to use. So basically, the Traffic Manager is a kind of load balancer which we can use to route traffic across regions. But in a typical load balancer can be used within the region, where the Azure Traffic Manager can be used across the region. This is the only difference. Okay, Traffic Manager can be used to distribute the traffic across regions. This is the only difference. Now, if you talk about how we can do across region, what is meant by it? So, for example, you have an app service. This is your app service. It could be anything. It could be anything. So, app service, which you kept it under central US. Okay, one app service you kept under central US. Okay, and there is one more app service you kept it under this one more app service you kept under North Europe. Okay, North Europe. So now if you want to load balance between these two, then a typical load balancer will not work, because it should be available within the region. Where if you see here, one app service who's kept it in Central US and one app service who kept it in North Europe. If you want to distribute traffic across these two, then you need a device called Traffic Manager. So with the help of Traffic Manager, you can route your traffic from one place to multiple regions. Okay, so whenever there is a request, so that request initially comes to Traffic Manager, and Traffic Manager will receive that request, and it will distribute that request to the respective backends. Okay, so this is the typical scenario. Now, if you observe the Traffic Manager, it won't have any mechanism to implement the firewall, to do the packet inspection, or to go for path-based routing. There is no possibility. It will simply route the traffic. Yes, tell me, you want me route it to the Central US, or you want me route it to the North Europe. That's it. Okay, you must have similar kind of backends. Either I can route the traffic to here, or I can route the traffic to here. Okay, for this purpose only, we can use Traffic Manager. So now, again in the Traffic Manager, while routing the traffic, there are certain methods. Okay, how you want me to route the traffic to the respective backends. So in the Traffic Manager, the backends we used to call it as endpoints. Okay, this is one endpoint and this is one endpoint. Okay, the backends we used to call it as endpoints. Whenever you receive a request, the Traffic Manager will try to contact the endpoint. Again, if you want to reach to the respective backend, this particular endpoint, you must configure one health page. Okay, you must configure one health page. Okay, so based on this health check, it will, if it is available, then it will route the traffic based on the routing method you selected. So this we can call it as routing method. So in Traffic Manager, there are certain routing methods available. The first one, if you talk about, it is priority based routing method. So what is meant by priority based routing method? For example, you have two endpoints and my preferable priority is Central US 1 as set to priority 1, or you can keep it here. This is priority 1 and this is priority 2. So what is meant by this priority 1, priority 2? If any traffic received to the Traffic Manager, then my first priority is to route this traffic to the app service hosted in Central US location. In that scenario, you can use priority. So if you set priority 1, all the traffic whatever you are receiving will goes to priority 1. Okay, now all of a sudden, if something is happened to this particular central US one, then immediately you come to this traffic manager. If you want, you can switch the priority from 2 to 1 here and from 1 to 2 here, so that all the traffic will switch North Europe as a primary. Or else automatically if priority 1 goes down, it will by default take the priority 2. Okay, so that this purpose it's called priority routing method. So based on the priority, it will route all the traffic to the respective endpoint. And second one is weighted method. So what is meant by this weight? Weighted is nothing but while creating the endpoints, I will define that, okay, 50% of the traffic will goes to this and 50% of the traffic will goes to this. There is no need to specify the priority and all this stuff. Instead, if you select weighted, you need to select the weightage. If you select 50% as a 50%, then whatever the request you are receiving, 50% of the traffic goes to here, 50% of the traffic goes to here. Okay, like that you can specify your weighted methods. Okay, based on the weightage you selected to the respective endpoints, the traffic also distribute in that same manner. That is about weighted. And next one is nested. So what is meant by nested? Nested is nothing but if you want to route your traffic from one traffic manager to another traffic manager, in that scenario you need to use nested. Okay, so from one traffic manager to another traffic manager, and that traffic manager contains many things. Okay, in that scenario you can use nested one. Okay, and one more important thing is performance based one. So what is meant by performance? So performance is nothing but, for example, I am initiating a request from East US. Okay, I am initiating a request from East US. Then if I select performance based one, it will try to check what is the nearby location. It is Central US or North Europe which is performing well. For example, here we have a Central US and here you have a North US. But both are near to East US, but out of these two, which is performing well? So for that particular region, the traffic will go. That is about performance based routing. Okay, and the last one, an important one, is geographical. Okay, so what is meant by the geographical? Geographical is nothing but if the traffic is initiating from east to west, then it will always try to go, or it will always try to forward that request to the east to west backend only, or east to west endpoint only. So that if you have the same country, or requests are receiving from the same country, and request is also forwarding from the same app service which is hosted in the same country or same region, so that you don't have a compliance issues, so that this data won't be exposed to the other countries, so that kind of security issues we can preserve. Okay, that compliance issues we can preserve. But in that purpose, very large organizations, they used to maintain that particular resources in specific region. Okay, or else you can go for performance based routing. Okay, if it is geographical routing, then whatever the country or whatever the region they are initiating the request, that should be handled by the same region of the resource. It could be app service, it could be virtual machine, or it could be any IP address, or it could be any URL. Okay, so for that purpose you can use geographical routing method. And if you talk about, we talk about the traffic manager, we talk about the routing method, we talk about the health check. Now we'll talk about endpoint. What kind of things actually I need to set as endpoints to the traffic manager? So currently, if you want, you can use Azure Cloud Services as a backend. What are the Azure Cloud Services backend? These are app services, and this is VM, and you have, if you want, you can define any along with app service and VM. If you want, you can define IP, anything you can specify, or fully qualified domain. Along with Azure Cloud Service, it is also offering external service or external cloud or external services. What are the external services? If you want, you can specify fully qualified domain name, or you can specify IP address. Okay, or else you can use the nested one. I already talked about nested routing. So if you have any existing traffic manager URL, you can utilize that as well. So only these are supported for traffic manager. Okay, so if you go further and if you want to show how we can create a traffic manager and all this stuff, let's back to the Azure portal, then search for traffic manager. So you can see this traffic manager profiles. Click on that. Here you can see the load balancing mechanisms like application gateway, front door, load balancer, and traffic manager. These are the four things available in Azure to route your traffic to the respective backends. These are the actual load balancers available in Azure. Four type of load balancers. Now we are talking about traffic manager. So click on create to create a new traffic manager. Okay, you need to provide your name to the traffic manager profile. For example, this name, whatever you are giving, this is unique. This is unique. So with the help of this name only, you are accessing your traffic manager. So make sure it should be unique one. For example, I am writing something like that. Okay, and now if you see the routing method, so we have routing methods like performance based routing, which will go to the nearable location which is performing well, and you have weighted routing where you can specify the weightages, and you have a priority based routing where you can specify the priority, and geographic routing where it can route to the respective location itself from the respect where the request is receiving, and you have multi-value also. So multi-value is nothing but for example, if you have if you select multi-value, nothing but it only resolves IPv4 and IPv6 address as a endpoint. So you can route your traffic to the respective IP address, IPv4 or IPv6. In that scenario, you can use multi-value. It only helps to route your traffic to the IPv4 and IPv6 addresses only. You have one more method called subnet. What is meant by the subnet method? Subnet method is nothing but, for example, you have multiple subnet. For each subnet, you want to go for a specific endpoint related to that subnet. In that scenario, you can use subnet method. For example, I have 10 VNets or one VNet with 10 subnets. For example, if the request is coming from subnet A, then it should resolve to the specific endpoint. Or if the request is coming from subnet B, then you can route the traffic to the specific endpoint. In that scenario, you can use subnet based routing method. So majority of the organizations, they will use either priority one or geographic one or performance based one. So these are the three options most probably they will use. So we'll see about priority one. So if you see the priority one, again you need to select the subscription where you want to create, and you need to specify the resource group where you need to create, and by defaultly when you select the resource group, automatically it will take its location based on the resource group, and that's it. When you click on create, your traffic manager will get created. That's it. The traffic manager is created. Okay, so when you click on go to the resource, now we see the traffic manager created. Okay, so if you come to the overview, so here it will show you the default things like which resource group it is having, and it is enabled or disabled, and you can see the subscription stuff, and you can see the DNS name. This is very important. So by using this DNS name only, you can access your traffic manager. Okay, and the monitoring status is inactive. That means the backend endpoint is not added. That is the reason it is showing inactive. If the backend endpoints added, then it must show online. Okay, if it is online, then only it can route traffic to the respective backends. And the routing method which we selected is priority based one. If you want, you can disable this traffic manager, or you can enable this traffic manager. Okay, and now if you talk about one by one, so this is about overview which we discussed, and activity log. If you made any changes, that who made the change and what the change he made, and who the details will be recorded here in the activity log. And access control means if you want to provide any access to this traffic manager to the specific user or a group or a service principal or a managed identity, then you can assign using this access control part. And then tags are for identification purpose. If you want, you can add your tags in a key value pairs. And then diagnose and solve problems. If you face any issues in the traffic manager and if you want to troubleshoot, then you can use diagnose and solve problems. Next, an important thing is settings. Under the settings, the first one is configuration. So for your backend or for your endpoint, you need to configure the respective health check or respective configurations by using this configuration section. Here I selected the routing method is priority. If you want, you can change it here also. Okay, and if I select the routing method is priority, then it is asking what is the DNS time to time to live, TTL for the DNS. If it is 60 seconds, so if you set 60 seconds, it will keep the DNS for 60 seconds, and then after that the time to leave, that means it will wipe off or it will clear its cache, and then again it will cache the DNS for next 60 seconds. And then endpoint monitor settings. So you have an endpoint, for example, how you want to monitor it, okay, the backend respect to backend. So by using HTTP or by using HTTPS, or you have any custom port defined. Okay, if you select HTTP or HTTPS, that would be better. If you select HTTPS as a backend, so your backend must have that HTTPS connection enabled. If you see this particular thing I was talking about, and this endpoint you are going to connect via HTTPS. Okay, that is what HTTPS, and HTTPS typically runs on port number 443. And what kind of path you are going to check for your health check? Okay, if it is slash, it's absolutely fine, or you have any specific page to monitor, you can give that page. Okay, and if you want to pass any headers, that you can pass headers from here itself. Okay, or else you are browsing something, this particular path on port 443 using protocol HTTPS. Now once you browse this, what kind of status code you are expecting? So if you specify that status code, if that receives that specific status code, then only it will consider that backend as healthy. Okay, for example, I am saying that my requested response code is 200 to 299. That means if it tries to reach out your backend with this particular protocol on this particular port for this particular path, and if it receives a response between 200 to 299, then it will consider the backend is healthy. Okay, you need to define your ranges here. If you want, you can give 200 to 201 also, it's up to you, but recommended method is 200 to 299, because all these are informational or the success status codes only. So you can consider 200 to 299. And then probing interval. So how many, for how much time I want to send this health request, for how much time duration I want to do the health check or perform the health check. If you set it as a 30 seconds, so every 30 seconds it will try to contact, or it will try to check the backend page whether it is healthy or not. That is called probing interval. And then tolerated number of failures. That means, first, for example, if I try to reach out this particular health page first time, okay, if it is not responding, and the second time it is not responding, and third time it is responding. So if it is not responding beyond 3 times, so based on the tolerated number of failures you specify, after 3 successful failures, then it will consider that the backend is not healthy. Okay, and the probe timeout means every 30 seconds it will try to reach out the respective backend page. It will wait till 10 seconds to receive the response. If within the 10 seconds, if the response is not received, then it will give you timeout. The backend is not healthy. It will check for 3 times. For 3 times it will get timeout. Then it will feels that something is issue with the backend. Your backend is not healthy. Okay. So the reason here, if you observe, you are not configuring the health check for respective app services. If you see, I have 2 app services, but in Traffic Manager, the health check is configured for only one. They are not saying that, okay, for your Central US one, you have the health check like this. For North Europe one, you have health check like this. Not. They are giving common one, because the Traffic Manager is meant to distribute traffic to the equal ones. Like whatever the data you kept it on Central US, the same data you kept it in North Europe as well. It's kind of same kind of app services. So it must be same kind of path. The same path must be accessible from here as well as here. So that is the reason you have a single health configuration irrespective of the backends. Okay, so this path must be accessible on both sides and both app services. Okay, this way you can configure it. Okay, and once you configure your configuration, then wait, you need to select the respective backends also, right? Okay, it is gets, the configuration is activated now. Now next, go for real time or real user measurements. So what is meant by the real user measurements? Real user measurements is nothing but, if you want to see what is happening inside your request, Okay, whenever it forwards that request to the respective endpoint, if something is happened or you want to debug information, if you want to see that, you need to use this real user measurements. What exactly it does, how we can do that? If you click on generate a key, it will generate some specific script at a specific key. This key you need to put it on your code. So you need to put in your code or configuration file. Then whenever you received any request, it will try to capture that things. Okay, that is called real user measurements. If you want to configure a real user management, it should generate one key, and this key you need to put it in your code so that it will try to send all information to this particular place so that you can monitor it. Next one is traffic view. I want to see how the traffic is going, how the traffic is receiving, and which region is doing well and which region is doing not well. If you want to see that view in that particular scenario, you can enable that traffic view. So if you enable this traffic view, you'll get like this. So if there is any traffic, then it will show you, okay, you have this particular traffic manager, and this is the region backend, and this is the region backend, and traffic is going to this particular region only. If you have anything, okay, that is called traffic view. And next one is endpoints. This is main important one. So these are called backends. This you need to configure. If you click on add, if you see there are Azure endpoint, that means Azure resources you can set as endpoints, and external endpoint, any external fully qualified domain name. If you see, when you select external endpoint, it is coming fully qualified domain name or IP, that you can configure under this traffic manager. Or you can use nested endpoint. Nested endpoint is nothing but another traffic manager. So another traffic manager. Okay, so I have the same traffic manager. If you have a multiple traffic manager, then you can send it to the another traffic manager. It's called nested one. And preferable method is you can use Azure endpoints. Okay, so if you choose Azure endpoints, just provide your endpoint name. Okay, you just provide your endpoint name and you are enabling that endpoint. Next, target resource type. You said that your respective backend lies on Azure only, and what kind of resource it is. If it is a cloud service, you can set as a cloud service. You can select the target cloud service if you have anything. Or you have an app service, click on app service and it will show you what are the available app services. Okay, if you have app service slot, you can use app service slot. If you have a public IP address, yes, you can use public IP address for that. So for example, I have one virtual machine, or okay, so I think this particular virtual machine is created beyond this region. That is the reason it is not allowing, but let it be. If you have any public IP address created, if you want to route traffic to that public IP address, yes, you can choose that public IP address. Okay, so you have only options like if you can route traffic to the app service or app service slot or any public IP address. Okay, next one. Okay, I can choose app service, so I can select the app service as well. Now, because my routing method which I selected is priority, that is the reason it is coming as a priority. If I select as weightage, in this plate it come as a weightage. Here you need to specify the weightage. Okay, so similarly, for each one you will get the respective things, respective settings. For example, I am setting this priority as 1 and health check I am enabling. If you use always server traffic, what it will do, it won't perform health check, it will continuously forward the traffic to the respective backend, which is not recommended. So without checking the health, okay, you cannot route the traffic to the backend. If you route the traffic to the backend without checking the health, if something has happened with that app service, so all the request will get failed. So okay, don't use this option, better to use health checks. If you click on add, your respective endpoint will be added. So similarly, you can add any number of endpoints. Okay, similarly, you can configure any number of endpoints. So based on the priority, it will always serve a request to the priority based ones. So if you see the monitor status, at the moment it is still checking the endpoint. It is still checking the endpoint. That means the backend is healthy or not. It is still checking. Okay, once the backend is healthy, then it will comes that okay, the monitoring is online. It will take a couple of minutes and it will come as online. You don't need to do anything. It is online now. Okay, now if you go to the app service which actually be configured, there must be one binding added in the app service. Okay, let's see in the app service. So if you go to the app service, which we set it as a backend. So if you see, if you go to the custom DNS names, there is one binding must be added. If you see Azure Traffic Manager.net. So there is an issue with binding. So we need to add that binding for that traffic manager. Okay, just validate and just add that binding. Okay, once you add that binding, then you can able to route the traffic from traffic manager to the respective app service. Okay, meanwhile we'll verify. Okay, meanwhile we'll verify the app service is working fine or not. Okay, so I will try to browse by using app service URL itself. So if I browse app service URL, what response I am getting? Okay, fine, I'm getting some response when you browse app service URL with page called test.html. Okay, now I configured one traffic manager, so I want to browse the same page by using traffic manager URL. So ultimately it should go to the respective app service and it should resolve to the same response. Okay, that is my intention. Now let's verify that it is coming or not. Yeah, it will take a bit minute. It is specified that it takes 10 minutes. So we'll wait for the 10 minutes to get it created. Once it is created, then we'll try to browse the same page by using traffic manager URL. Okay, it is created now. So let's verify again. If we go to the custom domains, I can see that yes, it is added. Now if I try to browse the same using traffic manager URL, so I'll go to the traffic manager which I created and I have the DNS name. So let's browse the same DNS name. Okay, the same URL what you searched, this one with test.html. See, so the same what it exactly did, it forwards the traffic to the respective app service and from there it is getting. Okay, so this way you can configure your traffic manager to route your traffic to the respective backend. Okay, so if you have a multiple backends, so you can configure another endpoints also. Okay, if you have a app service from another region, yes, you can configure it, but until and unless you switch this priority, always the priority 1 means always it routes the traffic to the priority 1 only. If you want to switch the priority, just come and edit the priority, then you can switch it like this. Okay, so if you can switch it the priority like this if you have a priority 1 configured. So this way you can switch it, or else by defaultly if something goes wrong in app service 1, you have another endpoint which is created with priority 2, automatically route the traffic to the priority 2.1. So this is the procedure you need to follow while creating traffic manager profile. And then properties section, it will show you some default details related to your traffic manager. What is the resource ID for this, and the location is global, and the resource group and the subscription ID. And if you want to set any logs, you can set it. And if you want to configure monitoring, you can configure alerts also. And you have the pre-default metrics you have, like what is the backend endpoint status. So I have one endpoint at the moment, so the status is healthy now. 1 means it's healthy. If you have a multiple endpoints, you can see that status. If something goes wrong, you can see that status here itself. Okay, that kind of metrics you can available here. And if you want to send logs to somewhere, then you can configure your diagnostic settings. You can send it to the storage account, or you can send it to the log analytic workspace or event grid or any partner solution. If you have, you can send your logs to that particular place. If you want to query that logs by using log analytic workspace, you can use log section. You have a by default queries, existing predefined queries you have. If you want to utilize, you can utilize that predefined queries, or you can write your own queries. Okay, and automation is nothing but if you want to create this traffic manager profile by using this ARM templates and all this stuff, you can generate your ARM template from this automation part itself. Okay, so where you can perform certain kind of CLI operations or PowerShell operations and all this stuff, you can do it by using this automation section. Okay, this is about your traffic manager.